0347 hours. Philippine Sea, 210 nautical miles east of Luzon. The night was calm, too calm. Aboard the USS George Washington CVN-73, the crew had been conducting routine nighttime flight operations. Jet engines roared across the deck, the faint glow of carrier lights reflecting off the black surface of the Pacific. But beneath that calm sea, something else was moving. At 0349 hours, the sonar array of the USS John S. McCain DDG-56, one of the carrier's escort destroyers, detected an unidentified acoustic signature. The pattern didn't match commercial vessels. It was narrow band, low frequency, and shifting depth, fast. Sonar contact. Possible submarine, bearing 274, range 18,000 yards. The Combat Information Center fell silent. The operator adjusted his headset, eyes locked on the sonar screen. The contact was faint, almost ghost-like, but deliberate. Then the voice came again. Contact maneuvering. Depth change confirmed. The destroyer's ASW officer leaned forward. That's no whale. 0353 hours. Contact confirmed within 4 minutes. Confirmation came from the USS Curtis Wilbur DDG-54 positioned to the east. The same acoustic signature. Now it wasn't just a contact, it was a track. The USS George Washington was suddenly at the center of a silent hunt. The contact's movement pattern was consistent with a Type 093A Shang-class nuclear attack submarine, one of China's most advanced stealth subs, equipped with YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missiles and wire-guided torpedoes. At 0356 hours, the tactical action officer aboard the carrier's escort reported, submarine closing, bearing 268, range decreasing, 15,000 yards and falling. The carrier's air operations paused. Deck lights dimmed to red. The night air turned tense. 0358 hours. First sign of hostility. A low-frequency ping echoed through the water. Deliberate, short, and sharp. Every sonar operator aboard the U.S. ships froze. That was a targeting ping. An active sonar pulse from the Chinese sub. Active sonar detected. They're painting us. The officer said quietly. It wasn't a drill anymore. At 3:59 hours, the John S. McCain began deploying sonar buoys in a defensive pattern. The USS George Washington initiated Condition 1 ASW threat. Over the encrypted net, the carrier's captain issued one command: track, classify, but do not engage unless fired upon. The Pacific Fleet's doctrine was clear: deterrence, not provocation. But deterrence only works until someone crosses the line. 4:02 hours. Torpedo in the water. The words every sailor dreads came next. Torpedo launch detected. Bearing 266. Range 12,000 yards. Alarms blared through the destroyer's decks. The John S. McCain's crew sprang into action, launching decoys and deploying countermeasures. The ship heeled sharply to port as the bridge officer shouted, "Hard left rudder. Deploy Nixie." The acoustic decoy trailed behind the destroyer, emitting false engine noises meant to divert the torpedo's tracking system. Within seconds, the sonar operator confirmed, high-speed underwater contact, closing fast. The first torpedo streaked through the water, a U-9 heavyweight model capable of 50 knots. But something was off. It wasn't targeting the carrier directly, it was aimed near her outer defensive screen. A warning shot, not a kill strike. Even so, it was an attack. 4:04 hours. U.S. response. Inside the Combat Information Center aboard the George Washington, the tactical action officer's voice was calm but firm. Multiple ships' defensive posture. Launch MH-60R Seahawks immediately. 2 Sikorsky MH-60R helicopters roared off the deck, dipping low over the Black Ocean. Their sonar arrays deployed into the water, listening, tracking, triangulating. On radar, small red icons began to appear. Sonar buoy returns forming a rough arc. The target was still moving, deeper now, turning away. likely reloading or repositioning. Target depth 1,200 feet, speed 25 knots. He's diving hard. The U.S. destroyers tightened formation around the carrier, forming a layered defensive shield. Aegis radars active, torpedo tubes armed, decoys deployed. Across the encrypted network, a message flashed from Pacific Fleet Command in Hawaii. Submarine engagement confirmed. Initiate protocol. Neptune Shield. Track and contained. 407 hours. The silent hunt begins. The USS McCain's sonar array pinged again. Contact reacquired. Bearing 263, range 11,500 yards. The Chinese submarine was circling back. Whether it was to re-engage or intimidate, no one knew. But every sailor aboard those ships understood. This was no accident. This was a test. A calculated strike to gauge America's response time and resolve. As the U.S. helicopters dropped more sonar buoys across the area, the sea below became an invisible battlefield, a grid of sound, deception, and precision. At 0409 hours, the Tactical Command Center aboard the carrier received confirmation. Hostile submarine identified, Type 093A, Shang class, likely from Yulin Naval Base, South China Sea. That meant one thing: this wasn't an independent action. It was part of something larger. And deep beneath the waves, the Chinese submarine prepared to make its next move. For 11 hours, beneath the surface, the ocean was now a chessboard of sound. Every ping, every echo mattered. The Chinese Type 093, a Shang-class submarine, had vanished into the black silence of the Philippine depths, its acoustic signature fading, then reappearing miles away. From the USS John S. McCain, the sonar operator whispered, "Target reacquired, shallow layer, speed increasing." The contact was moving erratically, surfacing slightly, then diving again. Classic counter-detection behavior. It was trying to confuse the U.S. sonar grid. On board the USS George Washington, the Combat Information Center operated under red light. The tactical action officer stood beside the carrier's captain, both men locked on the digital tracking display. "Sir, Chinese sub is repositioning to our 7 o'clock, likely preparing a secondary launch. Authorize counter-tracking," the captain ordered. "Deploy passive sonar nets and vector the Seahawks to intercept." For 15 hours. Operation Neptune Shield. The Pacific Fleet's classified anti-submarine protocol had now entered its second phase. 3 destroyers, John S. McCain, Curtis Wilbur, and Benfold, fanned out in a wide V formation around the carrier. Each ship deployed towed sonar arrays and passive hydrophones, creating a layered detection wall. Above them, 2 MH-60R Seahawks crisscrossed the zone, dropping sonobuoys in a precise spiral pattern. The sea now bristled with invisible ears. At 0417 hours, one of the Seahawks transmitted, "Buoy pattern Bravo shows metallic transient, bearing 262, possible torpedo tube door noise." That sound was unmistakable. The Chinese submarine was opening its launch doors again. 0419 hours. The counter-move. Without waiting for a second threat, the USS McCain's combat direction officer gave the order. Launch counter-torpedo package. Execute Delta Pattern 4. MH-54 lightweight torpedoes splashed into the water, streaking downward in a spiral formation. Not as an attack, but as a containment net. Each torpedo used active sonar to herd the enemy's sub away from the carrier group, forcing it deeper and eastward. Inside the Chinese submarine, crewmen would have heard the distant thunder of those approaching weapons. Sonar pings growing louder, closer. The captain likely ordered a dive below the thermal layer, where cold currents could scatter sonar reflections and confuse tracking systems. 423 hours. Silent duel. The next 6 minutes were a battle of silence. No one spoke. Every ship held fire. Every sonar pulse was analyzed, dissected, interpreted. At 0429 hours, a faint echo appeared. A single metallic clink 9,000 yards out. Then, a rush of bubbles. Possible countermeasure. Chinese sub launched decoys. The sonar tech reported, but those decoys gave away something more valuable. Their position. The U.S. operators now had a line of bearing, a direction, and that was all they needed. Target bearing 258, range 8,400 yards. Contact steady. The Curtis Wilbur turned west, angling for intercept. Her Mk-32 tubes swiveled into position. For a split second, the sea held its breath. Then came the order. Fire 1, Fire 2. MH-54 torpedoes launched, not to destroy, but to corner. 4:33 hours. Surface shadow. At 4:33, sonar picked up a new signal. Upward movement, fast. The Chinese sub was surfacing. Within moments, the periscope broke the surface, followed by the fin and sail of a dark gray hull glistening under moonlight. The submarine's comming tower displayed no flag, no lights, a silent defiance. Over secure radio, a transmission came through from the George Washington's command deck. Unidentified submarine, this is United States Navy warship. You are operating in international waters under hostile action. Cease maneuvers and surface immediately. No response, only static. Then, seconds later, a reply. Heavily accented English, distorted by static. U.S. carrier, we are conducting lawful operations. You entered our defense perimeter. The words confirmed what analysts had suspected. The attack was a message, not an accident. 4:38 hours. Pacific Command intervention. Thousands of miles away, at the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command in Hawaii, the situation had reached DEFCON 3 readiness. Electronic intelligence confirmed that the Chinese submarine's communications were linked to a surface vessel, a Type 055 Wenhai-class destroyer, 180 nautical miles to the west. The command response was immediate. Initiate Operation Sentinel Veil. Signal intelligence blackout. Deploy P-8A Poseidon. At 0444 hours, a U.S. Navy P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft lifted off from Kadena Air Base, Okinawa. Within 28 minutes, it would arrive over the engagement zone. Its mission: track, document, and ensure deterrence without escalation. 4:46 hours. The standoff. The Chinese submarine now floated at periscope depth, 6,000 yards from the carrier group. Every U.S. destroyer had weapons locked but held fire. For long minutes, both sides watched, motionless, cautious, calculating. Inside the George Washington's Combat Center, an officer whispered, "Sir, they're not retreating." The captain nodded slowly. "They're waiting to see if we blink first." But the U.S. Navy didn't blink. The destroyers maintained radar lock. The carrier's air wing remained ready. And as the P-8 Poseidon finally entered the area, it transmitted the confirmation signal to Pacific Command. Hostile submarine surfaced. No further torpedo activity. Situation stabilized. 4:53 hours. Withdrawal. As dawn approached, the Chinese sub slowly turned north, then began a gradual descent back beneath the surface. Within 15 minutes, it was gone, heading toward the deep trench that leads back to the South China Sea. No further transmissions, no radar trace, just the rolling silence of the Pacific. 0507 hours. The debrief. Back aboard the George Washington, the captain addressed his exhausted crew. What happened here tonight was not an accident. It was a test of our detection, our discipline, and our deterrence. And we passed it. Pacific Command's report later described the event as an unprovoked act of underwater aggression conducted in international waters. China's defense ministry would deny involvement, calling it a routine patrol misinterpreted by foreign vessels. But everyone aboard that carrier knew the truth, that somewhere in the dark waters of the Philippine Sea, the line between peace and war had thinned to a whisper. 0514 hours. The message satellite images the next morning showed the Chinese submarine docked at Yulin Naval Base. Its crew silent, its mission unacknowledged. But U.S. intelligence analysts had already drawn their conclusion. The attack was not meant to start a war. It was meant to measure one, to see how fast America could react, how far it would go before firing back. And what the Chinese command learned that night was simple. The United States doesn't react out of fear. It responds with precision. Because in modern warfare, silence is not peace. It's the moment before someone decides to break it.